Well, welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for your time. It's absolutely incredible what the Canadian government's doing as far as why not get all the startups to go live in Canada. Do you want to tell me a bit about this visa?
Absolutely. Last month we launched our new startup visa. This is something they've been talking about in Congress for years. The Valley and the IT industry have been...
smart.
It is. They've been asking Washington to find an immigration pathway for all these brilliant young tech entrepreneurs who want to do startups in the U.S., but for whatever reason that hasn't happened here. We have a very large immigration system in Canada. Now we've created a very specific, fast-moving permanent residency visa program for foreign entrepreneurs. All they have to do is to get a $200,000 investment in their business from a Canadian certified VenCap fund, or a $40,000 investment from a certified Canadian angel investor. If they get that, if they can retract that capital, they'll then be issued a certificate which allows them to apply for our startup visa. As long as they speak basic English or French, have done 1 year of college, and don't have a criminal record, we will in principle process their application and welcome them to Canada as permanent residents. Let me stress, no conditions, and they can stay in Canada permanently, and they get access to our government healthcare insurance program.
I've got goosebumps. That sounds absolutely incredible. I might be signing up.
You're welcome. We'd love more Aussies.
I have lived in BC, but only for a short period.
Okay.
So, and the other really interesting thing is that your government's so ahead of the ball, really. I read in January that there's a big initiative to support venture capital.
Yes.
And of course, that's one of my main interests.
Right. We've also launched a $400 million government support for the venture capital industry. Part of that is going into a risk fund where we're trying to prime the pump to bring out more capital from the private sector, and we're really hitting our stride right now. Since the dot-com crash, there was a real lull in the VenCap and startup industries in Canada, but we are now seeing dynamic growth. There are all sorts of startups that are being exited at $1 billion or higher valuations, even in remote parts of Canada, like New Brunswick and the East Coast. You wouldn't have expected $2 billion startup exits in the last year. So a lot of that's being facilitated by very successful Canadians living down here in the Bay Area who are tying U.S. venture capital with Canadian startups. But now with the startup visa, what we're trying to do is to become a magnet for the human capital. This is an industry where human capital matters more than financial capital. We have a flexible immigration system. Now we want to bring the best and brightest who cannot get their residency in the U.S. to come north of the 49th parallel.
Wow. So if you want to win, go to Canada.
But I got one other thing to add, which is people, I've talked to Canadians here who came down 15, 20 years ago. They were part of what we used to call the brain drain.
Yes.
Many of our brightest professionals, including two of my brothers, they went to the States or else.
There's some Canadian VCs here.
Of course, yeah. A lot of them came, many of them stayed. We think there's 300,000 Canadians living in the Bay Area alone.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of brain drain back then. A lot of those people do not know that we've made some really positive policy changes in Canada. For example, we used to have tax rates that were much higher than the U.S. They're now much lower. On average, our corporate tax rates are 10 to 15 points lower, depending on which province you're in, than in the U.S. Our capital gains taxes are lower. We have a tax credit for salaries in areas like research, development, and engineering. If you're doing a startup, you can write off up to 35% of the salaries for engineering. That's money that the government will give you. So the labor cost, the effective labor costs are much lower because of that.
Yes.
There's all sorts of government incentives. There's a strong and growing VC ecosystem in various areas. And now the magnet of this new startup visa for brilliant young foreign entrepreneurs. So we hope we're about to really hit critical mass.
I think it is a great area, and the other incredible point that you've got up there is you've got an amazing talent, engineering talent, and of course down here it's very hard to find now. So, where else are we going to go? We're going to go to Canada.
There you go.
Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
your time.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.